Welcome to the Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online Spring 14 SharePoint Document Management session. My name is Corey Hansen. Today we'll be covering the SharePoint Document Management configuration and the supported scenarios to go along with it. We'll also take a look at the SharePoint Document Management functionality and the customization options to go along with the new updates. And then finally we'll take a look at the architecture changes in the SharePoint Document Management area. With the Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2011 release, we shipped a SharePoint Sandbox solution for allowing document management integration to SharePoint. Since that time, the SharePoint team has made plans to deprecate the Sandbox solution method in the near future. We are moving away from the Sandbox model and using SharePoint native APIs, which allows us to create a deeper, richer integration with SharePoint. With the Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online Spring 14 release, we are adding support for server-based authentication for Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online organizations that are on the Office 365 platform. It is important to note that if your CRM Online organization is still using Windows Live ID for login and you haven't been migrated over to Office 365 yet, then you will not be able to use the new server-based authentication. Also, if you are an on-premise or in a hybrid scenario, you will need to continue to use the list component for SharePoint document integration. If you have different Office 365 subscriptions, you will need to use the list component as well. So if SharePoint is in one subscription and CRM is in another subscription, you will not be able to use the server-based authentication. In previous releases, to get the SharePoint document management integration working, you would go out to the Microsoft download site, download the Microsoft Dynamics CRM list component, choose which version of SharePoint you're using, 2010 or 2013. Then you would go over to your SharePoint server. Within SharePoint, you would upload the list component to your site collection and any additional site collections you have that you want to make available for Dynamics CRM. Within Microsoft Dynamics CRM, you would then launch the document management settings, select which entities you wanted to select, and then after that is complete, you would see SharePoint documents showing up in CRM in an iframe view. When you use the list component in Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online, it uses client-based authentication. Many times you run into issues where the content in the page cannot be displayed until you log into SharePoint site first. Using server-based authentication will resolve this issue. With the new server-based SharePoint integration, you can enable that right from within Microsoft Dynamics CRM. Within the document management area, you'll click on server-based SharePoint integration. From there, it'll have you validate your SharePoint site, making sure it isn't an on-premise SharePoint site or another Office 365 SharePoint site from another subscription. Once that's validated, you can go over to the document management settings like in previous releases. Here you'll select which entities you want to enable for the document management integration, as well as how you want the folder structure to look. Once that's complete, when you log into Dynamics CRM and go to the Documents area, you'll notice the documents will show up in a grid view versus the iframe view in previous releases. To enable server-based authentication, we'll go ahead and navigate over to the Settings area, and within Settings, you'll want to click on Document Management. Within Document Management, you'll notice a new option called Enable Server-Based SharePoint Integration. Clicking on this will bring up a window where you can validate your SharePoint URL. This will do the validation to make sure it's not an on-premise SharePoint site or another Office 365 SharePoint online site from another tenant. Also, if you're doing an upgrade or kind of a migration from the original list component over to server-based authentication, at this screen you can actually just click Next because we're going to validate all your URLs that you have set up for your SharePoint integration. If any of those URLs should be invalid, we will not enable SharePoint server integration for you. You would have to remove any of those invalid URLs first before being able to complete this option. Since this is a new setup, I'm just going to go ahead and I'll put in my URL and we'll hit Next and we'll see if it can validate my URL. So it says sites to be validated 1, so it's the only one it found. Again, if this was an upgrade scenario, it would list all your sites that you have here and it will validate each and every one of them. So here my validation is succeeded, so I can go ahead and click on next, and now basically it gives me a message saying a server connection is being established between Dynamics CRM and SharePoint Online. This may take a minute. Once it is done, if you have added a new SharePoint site URL, you'll need to go to the Document Management Settings wizard and enable automatic folder generation. So this is an important step, because just because we enabled the server-based authentication doesn't mean we're done yet. As you see, that option will go away now because it's enabled. And now that it's enabled, we can't disable it. We can't go back to the list component. So we've enabled server-based authentication, and now we're just going to go ahead and go up to Document Management Settings, and now we're going to run through the normal process of enabling the entities that we want for document management. So I'm just going to accept the defaults here. Again, I'll put in my URL that I want to use. This will be my URL that's going to be the automatic folder creation site. And then the same as before, we can choose to base our folder structure on an entity, either account or contact, or we can leave it set to blank. In this instance, I'll go ahead and select account. And for those that aren't familiar with this option, basically what this will do is if I have an opportunity that I have a documents folder for, it'll actually put it under the account. So I'll have a folder called an account. I'll have the account name, then I'll have the entity name, then I'll have the record name. So I'll have account, Contoso, opportunity, and then opportunity name. And then the files will be under that folder. So it's going to go ahead and create my folders for me. Now that that has succeeded, I can click Finish, and now we've set up server-based authentication with our document management settings. The concept of document management integration is very similar to the Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2011 release. An entity is enabled for document management, and folders can be automatically created as users navigate to the documents location for each Microsoft Dynamics CRM record. With the change to use native SharePoint APIs and server-based authentication, there are some functionality differences that you will see while using the document management features. With the document management functionality, it enables enhanced sales collaboration. So Nancy, for example, and Kevin can be working on a document together. The document is stored in SharePoint, so it's not taking up CRM storage space. They can use check-in, check-out as they modify the document together. They can use version control to control the versions and any updates that are made. They can have approval processes and share documents with other employees within the system. So using SharePoint document management integration allows enhanced sales collaboration for the entire team, as well as users that may not even be in Dynamics CRM. As long as they have a SharePoint login, they can take advantage of navigating to that folder and updating and reviewing the documents that are in SharePoint. So let's jump over to a demo and take a look at some of the new functionality features of the SharePoint document management integration. Now that document management is enabled, let's go ahead and navigate over to the sales area and go to the accounts. I'm going to open up the Adatum Corporation. Once that comes up, I'm just going to hover over by the name here. And when the drop down comes up, I'm going to go ahead and click on Documents. Just like in previous releases, we're going to see the folder creation. This is the automatic folder creation. Go ahead and confirm that. And then now if our folder has been created in SharePoint, and you notice we now have our grid inline. We don't have the iframe look and feel anymore. So now we can actually do things like pick different views. So if we wanted to display our documents or filter them down by different views, we can now do that. I can go ahead and upload a document. So let me just go ahead and pick a document here. I have a process document. We'll go ahead and upload to this site. And you notice this is a PowerPoint document, and if I go ahead and open it right from here, it'll actually open it up right in PowerPoint for me. If I go ahead and click on New, you'll notice I have some options here to create new Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or OneNote documents right from within CRM. So if I go ahead and click on New Word Doc, let's just go ahead and Call this process doc. I'll click save, and notice it'll launch me right into Office 365 Word Online. So I can go ahead and start editing this document, and I can go ahead and close it. One thing with Word Online, it saves it as soon as you're typing it. So I can go ahead and close this, and now everything is saved within my document, and it's actually uploaded to SharePoint. Now I'm going to go back to my account record, and I'm going to scroll down here to my opportunities. Notice I have a couple opportunities for this account. I'm going to go ahead and go into the first one here. And on each opportunity, we like to create a documents folder and store some specific documents for that opportunity. So what I'm going to do is, now that I'm on the opportunity, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hover over by the opportunity name, and I'm going to click on the documents drop down. A new folder will be created for me for that document, and you notice here it'll actually be put in my account folder with a subfolder of the opportunity and then the opportunity name, and we'll look at that here after this is completed. So now I have my SharePoint document folder set up. I can go ahead and I can upload documents to this folder. Let's go ahead and let's just say I have the quote here for this opportunity. I'll go ahead and upload that one. And I'll upload one other document that I have here. It's our price list. So now I have two documents in this folder in SharePoint. I'm going to go back to my accounts. I'm going to open up the Datum Corporation one more time. I'm going to scroll down to the opportunities. I'm going to open up my second opportunity here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get a folder created for this opportunity as well. I'm going to go ahead and confirm the folder creation. And I'm going to upload those same documents to this site as well. Upload one more here. So what I want to show here is when we go back to the account, how it looks from the account view. So now I have both of those uploaded. Let's go ahead and go back to our accounts. Go back to the Datum Corporation. And now I'm going to go to the Documents folder that's under my account. As that comes up, notice here I have one document I originally uploaded, plus the other one we created from within the account. Notice I can see the other two files I uploaded that are on the opportunity, because when I set up the document management settings, I chose it to be based on account, so any subfolders related to an account would be directly related underneath each account. The one thing that's changed from our previous releases is before we used to show the folder in this iframe, but now since we're not using an iframe anymore, we actually display the list of all the records. So in my scenario where I uploaded the same named document to two different opportunities, it might be a little hard to tell which one is for which opportunity. What you will notice is we do have a location column over here where we can go ahead and expand that and see actually which opportunity it's for. And so you can actually get the name of the opportunity just by looking at the location. But that's just kind of one thing to note, is with the new server-based authentication SharePoint integration, is we do not display folder structures anymore. It's only displaying the list of all the files that are beneath that account record. However, if I do go over to SharePoint, so let's just click on Open SharePoint here, you will notice that I do have actual opportunity folder within SharePoint. And if I go into that opportunity folder, I do have the two subfolders for each opportunity. And then within each opportunity, I do have the actual files. So in SharePoint, they are still structured with the folder, but how we display them in CRM is by using just the files. We'll display all the files here. And so what you could do too is you could have different views that may be limited, based on a certain type or certain field, what you display. So that may be one way to help out as well, or have more unique name documents that you're uploading to SharePoint. What you will also notice with some of the new changes with our grid view here is, depending on what you have selected, the command bar will show relevant actions for items that you have selected and the actions you can take. So for example, right now I don't have any documents selected, but I can go ahead and I can create new documents, I can upload documents, I can create another document location, or view the document locations, or create one. I could edit the location, or I could open up SharePoint. If I go ahead and select a document down here, notice how some of these command bar actions change. I now have edit, delete, checkout, check in, edit properties. I can discard the checkout. I can still create a new document. And if I hit the little three lips button here, I still have my few options for uploading, opening SharePoint, adding locations, and etc. So the way we used to see it within the iframe is that command bar would be pretty constant no matter what records or how many records you selected. Now in the new grid view, the command bar will give the user relevant actions on what you can take. If I go ahead and check out a document, notice the icon will change, and I'll have a little arrow at the bottom right hand corner showing me that this document is checked out within SharePoint. I go and check out another document here. So you can quickly visualize what documents are checked out, and I can go ahead and quickly check them back in here as well. Once they're checked back in, that arrow will go away, and now it shows me the last modified time as well as who modified it. As I'm uploading documents, one thing you'll probably notice with this message here is it says the maximum upload limit in CRM is 5 megabytes. So if I try to upload a file that is larger than 5 megabytes, I'll actually get an error message telling me that I need to upload something smaller than 5 megabytes. So basically we hit an attachment limit. The attachment is too large. So what we can do is we can actually increase that limit, and that setting is within our settings area. If we go over to administration and then go to system settings, and if we click on the email tab, if we scroll down, here we have set file size limit for attachments. So we can go ahead and increase this setting here. So let's go ahead and we'll set this to, let's see, click OK. Let's go ahead and go back over to our accounts area and go to documents. And let's go ahead and upload another document. You'll notice now it says the maximum upload limit in CRM is now 14.65 megabytes. So it's directly telling you, what that setting is set to. So now I should be able to go ahead, grab my large file, which is only 9 megabytes, and let that upload. Now, for those of you familiar with that file size limit setting, you will notice that that is our attachment size limit setting. So increasing that value also increases the size of attachments that can be uploaded and saved or tracked from emails within CRM. So depending on if that's something you want to increase, just take note that it would increase the attachment limit as well. We will be looking in future releases to have its own setting for the SharePoint upload, but right now it is controlled based off of the email attachment file size. The other way you can get around is, if say you didn't want to increase the limit past the 5 megabytes that it is set currently, instead of uploading it right from CRM, you still could open up SharePoint with this link by clicking on Open SharePoint, and then from within SharePoint you could go ahead and upload the document directly from here. So there is no the file size limit setting that's in CRM does not apply to SharePoint over here. And there are a couple options that are not available anymore within the new grid control. So options like alert me, download a copy,
copy shortcut, send shortcut, view properties, and version history are no longer available within the command bar. However, if you do go over to the SharePoint site, you can still take advantage of those features from within SharePoint directly. So if you wanted to download a copy, you could take advantage of the SharePoint functionality from the SharePoint site, alert me, and all the other features that we do not support within the grid command bar anymore.
With the architecture changes to the document management integration, you now have more customization options than in the past. You now have the ability to display additional fields from SharePoint within Microsoft Dynamics CRM. This can be out-of-the-box fields or custom SharePoint fields. You also have the ability to create system and user views to help with filtering the documents that are displayed for the entity you are viewing. With the new customization options, when you add a new field to the document entity in Microsoft Dynamics CRM, we do not store the data of the column from SharePoint, we just retrieve it when we retrieve the documents. It is still important that the field types support each other. For example, if you tried to create a date-time field in Microsoft Dynamics CRM and it had the same name as a person column in SharePoint, the view would fail when trying to use that view in Microsoft Dynamics CRM. You can use text fields within Microsoft Dynamics CRM to display any SharePoint column type. On this slide is a list of the supported field types from Microsoft Dynamics CRM and SharePoint that can be used in the document management integration. Once the fields are created, you can then start to create system and user views to display the fields within Microsoft Dynamics CRM. Let's jump over to the demo and take a look at the customization options we have.
So within SharePoint, what I did is I added a custom field called custom status, and this is just a pick list field with 3 values. And so I already created it within SharePoint. If you don't know how to create SharePoint fields, please refer to the document that is attached to this recording. With the new column in SharePoint created, let's go ahead and go back over to CRM. And I'm just going to go ahead and go over to the settings area, and it'll bring up the customization area. I'm going to click on Customize the System, and I'm going to go down and expand entities and find the document entity. Expand documents, and I'm going to go to fields, and I'm going to create a brand new field. And the key thing here is we want to make sure we name it the exact same name as what is in SharePoint, so the display name has to match. Call it custom status. And in this case, I'm just going to leave it as a single line of text because, again, we're not actually storing the data in CRM, so the data types don't have to match exactly, and text fields in CRM can display any field from SharePoint. I could try to use a date field or some other CRM multi-line text, but if I was doing that and I had a person field in SharePoint, which is the GUID or the person that it's linked to, and I try to put that into a date field in CRM, that would cause that view to fail. So what I want to do is make sure that I at least use text or something that's similar to the data type I'm using in SharePoint. Go ahead and save and close. Now with that field created, I'm going to go ahead and go over to Views, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the All SharePoint Document view. And we'll go ahead and just click on Add Columns, and we'll find our new field that we just added. We can move that over. Save and close. So with that view modified now, I'm going to go ahead and select Documents, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Publish. Now that the changes are published, let's go ahead and go back over to the Accounts. And then let's go back over to the Documents area. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch my view now to the All SharePoint Documents. And you notice now my custom field is now displaying within the view, and I do have the custom status being pulled over for the document types that have it filled in so far. I didn't fill it in on the ones that were under the opportunity yet, but if I go back over to my SharePoint site, you'll see that these three have statuses, and now those statuses are pulled into CRM. And again, we're not storing this data in CRM, we're just grabbing it as we're grabbing the data from SharePoint. So to show you real quick what would happen if you use a field type in SharePoint and a field type in CRM that do not support each other. So for example, I created a currency or number field in SharePoint, and I created a date field in CRM. And I added that to my associated view. So if I go to my associated view, notice I get this invalid date time error. So the date time format is not valid, or the value is outside the supported range. So basically it's just saying, the format that it's sending the data over from SharePoint does not match the format that CRM is expecting. So that's why using text fields within CRM is probably the best option, or another supported field type that would match what's in SharePoint. You can click on download the log file and see more information, but basically it's going to tell you this kind of the same thing about the invalid date time format.
SharePoint document management in Microsoft Dynamics CRM is moving to API-based communication using SharePoint client-side object model APIs. All the supported operations now will get executed using these APIs from the Microsoft Dynamics CRM server. The async server will be used to perform SharePoint interaction. An async server plugin was written which will communicate with SharePoint and perform the API calls. With the client-side approach in the previous releases, the client was doing the authentication, which depending on your scenario could mean having to log into SharePoint first before documents would be displayed. With the server-based approach, the server is doing the authentication. So in this scenario, Nancy signs into Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online. Nancy opens the Documents section of a Contoso opportunity. This will trigger a call into Windows Azure Access Control Services, otherwise known as ACS, for a security token from ACS. This is the server-to-server token vouched for by ACS, saying this is indeed the Microsoft CRM Online application that is making the call. Security Token Service creates a self-authenticated token saying that it is Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online and wants to talk to SharePoint Online, and gives it to ACS and validates it. Now it knows the calling party and where it wants to go. Security Token Service needs to know who the user is, so once Microsoft Dynamics CRM gets the security token from ACS, it adds the user information to the token. Basically who the user is, SMTP info, so SharePoint can identify. SharePoint validates ACS signature, verifies audience, then can accept the token since it knows the token was validated by ACS and is for SharePoint Online, and then accepts the user information. Then the response sends back the resources that Microsoft Dynamics CRM was asking for. The deprecation plan for SharePoint Sandbox solution will be a phased one. We won't remove the feature overnight, but it will be a gradual deprecation of the feature. For those that are in a hybrid scenario, there will be a way to re-enable the Sandbox solutions so the list component will still work until we have a solution for the hybrid scenario. This ends our Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online Spring 14 SharePoint Document Management session.